Welcome to the Inspired by Jacqueline podcast, a refreshing place for women struggling with entrepreneurship, faith, or infertility. Stay tuned for today's episode. Hey everyone, Jacqueline here. I am so excited about today. I'm always excited, but I'm really excited about the conversation today because it's a conversation about struggles and making the right choices or making the right decisions. And with that said, ask yourself, how do you know when it's the right time? When it's the right time for anything? So do you ever trust your gut feeling? I have the saying of your gut will never lead you wrong. Okay, it's not my saying, but I always say it and I feel strongly that it's my saying. Today's chat that I'm going to have with this special guest, that's going to come up because I know that she trusted her gut feeling and she felt it that this is the right time to make the change that she made. So without further ado, let's just get to it. I'm so excited to have Leah Weinberg with me today, and I'm going to share a little bit about her. If you go to the show notes, you'll see the rest of her bio, but these two lines I'm going to share, and then I'll ask her to elaborate on a few things. So Leah Weinberg is the co-founder of Oduberg Law, and she's the co-owner of Legally Set. That is a contract template shop. So if you don't have your contracts, definitely a great place to go. She's an attorney, and to top that off, I'm not done yet. She is a recovering wedding planner, and she's the author of the Wedding Rollercoaster. Leah, I just got tired, and that was just a quick line. Elaborate on that. Tell me a little bit about yourself and welcome.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really excited to be here today and looking forward to our conversation. My first career was as a commercial real estate attorney. And at a certain point during that career, I decided that I wanted to start my own business, and event planning was the business idea that I landed on. So I was a wedding planner for close to a decade. And as of the beginning of this year, I have shut down my wedding planning company and gone back to being an attorney. So I am 100% in my full circle moment of life right now.
That is awesome. Okay, I am not gonna wait anymore. I said in your quick little bio, you're a recovering wedding planner. Okay, spill it. What
Yes.
happened? Why are you recovering? And is there something that I need to know? So I kind of steer away.
Well, it's funny because I used to describe myself as a recovering attorney, and now I'm a recovering wedding planner. So I keep just sort of going
Definitely
into
a full circle.
It
Yes.
is definitely full circle. But yeah, so I started ColourPop events in 2013 was the year I had my first official wedding. I had my last official wedding as ColourPop events in October of 2022. So close to little more than 9 years. But yeah, I have a history in my life of very specific moments sending me on very specific paths. I'm not the type that I like marinate on things and ponder things. Like it'll very much be like something distinct happens and that is the direct catalyst for me doing something. Like I remember I had one specific phone call while I was still working part-time as a lawyer while getting ColourPop events off the ground, and I had a very specific phone call after with an opposing counsel, after which I said, "Oh, I'm done. I have to figure out a way to put this law stuff behind me." And so I figured out how to financially make it work, and a few months later went full-time with ColourPop events. And so it was a similar moment in terms of deciding to end my career as a wedding planner. Particular event happened that made me realize that this was not the job for me for so many reasons. And it had more to do with the actual service of wedding planning and not necessarily the business part. I love running a business. I've now started my own law firm. So I'm basically on business too for all intents and purposes. But yeah, it just became very clear to me in this particular moment that wedding planning was not the right thing. And it took me a few months to figure out what exactly was next. But then I can pinpoint the exact moment where I was like, oh, I need to start a law firm with Kubi. So it's always just, and I look back on my life and it's always these very distinct moments that send me in very specific directions.
So going back to how I started the conversation, was that what you felt like your gut feeling?
Yeah, it was overwhelming. It was just
Yeah.
very obvious in all of these different moments that like I needed, this was the change that needed to be made, and this was the new direction I needed to go in.
Well, you and I are really connected in that, in specific events or things that happen, because back in the day, in my original career, I was an accountant, and I did a few years in payroll. So I went from being payroll processor to supervisor to manager, etc. And when I was a manager, there were a few specific moments that it was just getting a little intense, and it wasn't so much the job itself. It was, like you said, a counsel. To me, it was a different counterpart as well in management. I was starting to get this anxiety attack. I got one, and the next time I was like, I don't know if this is the life that I want. Long story short, something happened, another specific event, and I started feeling that anxiety. I closed the door to my office. I called my husband. I said, that's it. I can't do this. I was hyperventilating. He was like, okay, because we already had a preliminary conversation. I packed up my stuff and I jetted out. I quit.
Wow.
Because I already had conversations before.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. There are specific events, and going back to that gut feeling that it's understanding that when you have a connection, and it's like mind and body connection, that spiritual sense of things, that if you're connected like that, you really can tell. It becomes so strong that you're looking out for your well-being, right? And and it's been that strong for you, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and you have to, but in order to be able to be in that place, like you said, you have to have developed that mind-body connection where you know what feels off, you know what feels right to you, you know what feels off or feels wrong to you. So that way you can make those decisions. So it's about paying attention, having that self-awareness, and being mindful of situations and how you're feeling in certain contexts.
I had to make a decision on my well-being versus, what made sense. And my well-being won because I feel in a much better place, even though, wedding planning is like on the top of the chart with stressful jobs.
Yep.
So how that makes sense, it does to me in some way or another, but yeah. But thank you for sharing that and being open with that. How did you know that it was the right decision? What if you didn't have that law background? What would you have done? Would you have try to change different processes, or would you, I know it's really hard to say, but what do you think you would have done, or would you have lasted a little longer?
I actually started going down a different path because I was fighting the law thing I fought for a long time. So I actually started doing paralegal work for Kubi mid 2020 amidst the pandemic, because it was like, we don't have it. I have nothing to do. I didn't want to like full blown go back to being a lawyer because I didn't want to re-up my bar. I didn't want to deal with malpractice insurance. And she and I had met at the end of 2019, very serendipitously. And I had reached out to her and I said, do you need any help? Do you need any paralegal help? And so for about 2 years, I was helping like drafting service contracts. Obviously, almost everybody in the wedding industry needed to redo their contract at that point.
Yes. That was a moment.
Yes. So I was helping with that. And she joked the whole time that like for 2 years, she was like, you're going to come back to me one day. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm absolutely not. And to the point where I felt guilty that I was leading her on by continuing to do this work for her. And so when I had decided that I was done with weddings, I still had basically a full year left to go. Like I was already booked up for 2022 by the time I had made that decision. But I started down the path of actually creating digital products for engaged folks. I had started paying somebody to create a website for me, but I was going to sell like checklists, budget templates, vendor selection tools, all of that stuff in an attempt to like have some passive income and try to leverage that and leverage my book a little bit. And I just kept putting it off and never getting it done. And I was like, this is not really what I want to do. And then, like I said, I had that aha moment where I decided to go into business and start a law firm with Coombe. But I don't think I think I would have found something else. I don't think I would have stayed planning because I was already kind of done with the planning. My mind was made up. I just knew it was sort of just like all of the things that really hit me hard during my time as a wedding planner, like emotionally and just like how much we take on for our clients. All of that was really weighing on me. And so there was a moment of like, this is kind of the last straw type thing. And so, yeah, I knew that I was done. It was just a matter of what was going to be next.
You know what? We're having an amazing conversation because you're just reading my mind as to the next question that I was going to ask. So I'm glad that you mentioned the emotional piece, because that's one thing that I was going to ask you. Was that part of that specific thing that, make that final decision?
Yeah.
And if yes, then what would you recommend to someone who's still a wedding planner or looking to be a wedding planner on how to prepare? You're taking on a full emotion case almost, right?
Yeah.
Like a law case, right? And that case is coming with your client's emotions, their family's emotions, and the wedding party's emotions. So there you go.
Yes. Yes. So I consider myself, I'm an empath. I also am a highly sensitive person, which I just fairly recently learned a lot more about that. And just sort of, and just to quickly brief the audience on that, because there's a kind of a misnomer about highly sensitive people thinking that it just means that we're super emotional. But in fact, it actually means that our nervous systems are extra sensitive. And so we react to stimulus, whether it's good, bad, happy, sad, positive, negative. We just react to whatever it is more strongly. And so looking back on my experience as a wedding planner, being an empath and a highly sensitive person explains a lot of the emotions that I went on. But as planners, some people will debate this, but kind of at the end of the day, it is our jobs to make people happy, but like we are responsible for this very significant event, and we are sort of responsible. We feel like we're responsible for people's happiness. So when people are dissatisfied, my experience was, whether it was my fault or not, I felt sad and upset that I'd let people down, even though like my brain would look at the situation and go, I had nothing to do with this. This was the caterer's fault. They messed up the wedding cake. Like I had nothing to do with this, but I still would carry it in my body.
Like ownership.
And yes,
like
I felt
ownership,
it was,
yes.
I felt like it was my responsibility. And so, 9 out of 10 weddings and clients are fantastic. And those are the ones that help you keep going. But it's those ones that pop up here and there that just really take it out of you. I had to stop that for me, because people, and you said, what advice would I give people who are emotional? And I will fully admit, I had to just remove myself from the situation, because there was no setting that I could switch to care less. This is just how I am, and this is how I'm impacted by things. And so I know sometimes people are able to flip that switch and they turn it off and they're just able to kind of like be at arm's length. And I knew that I couldn't do that. And so I had to just like physically get myself out of the profession, because it was just really taking an emotional toll on me.
Wow. And did you have a team that you would be able to switch, let's say, roles with at certain times, depending on people's personalities or the emotions that were going on?
No, and that's probably part of the problem. I was a one-woman show. I was running the business on the client-facing side and doing, obviously I had people helping me on the back end, like a virtual assistant and stuff like that. But it was all me. And that was that was by design. That I knew I made a conscious decision that I didn't want to have associates. I didn't want to build out a team what I was giving my clients and the service that I offered was me. Like it was very
Right.
personal. And I know a lot of people, especially when it comes to planning, will suggest that you don't necessarily go that route and don't like center yourself. And there's multiple reasons for that. But it was a conscious decision that I made. Like this was my business. The service I was offering was unique to me and my personality and what I brought to the table. And so I wanted people to get me. But yes, that is not having team members.
And I'm glad you
Yeah.
shared that because, and thank you for that transparency, because for me, I do have a team that I contract for events, but I do have my partner and we're in tune. So he knows my business and he knows how I run my business. I'm very, very patient. So for someone who's very, very patient to be taken to a different level, that's a whole different conversation. Being in business for so long, I'm able to say that 0.1% of not being patient, and sometimes I'll switch it up and it'll be him that steps into the role and I'll take a different role. Not so much with the clients, but with the event professionals. And so we switch it off just to give that extra opportunity and it usually works. Everyone has a different way of running their business and we have to respect and acknowledge every single format. But we also need to understand that we need to evaluate ourselves, right, as to our mindset and what we're strong enough to handle and what we're not strong enough to handle. And how are we going to, if we are a service provider, how are we going to remain sane and give the best professional quality services to our clients and work with the event professionals that we do. So thank you for sharing that. With that said, it jumps us into the next question that I had. With those emotions that you had, like, tell me on a personal basis, how did you leave it at the door? Did you bring it home? Like, how did that work out for you? And is there something that you learned from it?
I would not leave it I didn't leave it at the door.
I feel you. I understand. You have to let it out.
It all came home with me in various shapes and forms. I mean, I had the wedding that made me change my, life path. I cried for 2 days after the wedding, like talked to my husband about it. I have to like just get it out and communicate. And so like I sort of, talked to him about what was happening and figured out how to like express my emotions and talk about it because I just needed to talk it out and just get it out there. But yeah, I mean, again, empath, highly sensitive person. Like I bring it home. It's hard to disconnect. I try to, now that I've kind of figured out how I operate, I definitely try to intellectualize it a little bit. And again, say, okay, this is what happened. Brain, that like this was not your fault. You did the best thing that you could in the situation to fix other people's mistakes. And so like, let's acknowledge how we're feeling. Let's try to breathe through it. And then like, let's move on. I am a big believer that we can't just ignore our feelings. So like, even though my brain is saying this was not your fault and my body was feeling it, I didn't want to just like run away from how I was feeling. It was kind of like, okay, I want to acknowledge that I did the best that I could. I'm still feeling emotionally sad or hurt or whatever by the situation. I'm going to acknowledge that I'm feeling this way, but I need to eventually not necessarily quickly, but eventually I need to let it go and I need to move on. Like there's no point in harboring any of this stuff, which I feel like I definitely have picked up that skill and gotten better at like acknowledging, processing, sitting in it for a little bit and then moving on and letting go.
Yeah, I can't leave it at the door. I have to bring it in. But one of my mental wellness is laughing a lot. It's like every day, nonstop. I release whatever energy or emotions through the day or through laughter. It's like you can't control certain things. And when you stay in that mode of, well, why couldn't I control it?
Yep.
You're going to drive yourself crazy. And so I live day by day laughter. That's like my number one medicine. I know one thing that I didn't share yet in the bio is that you're an educator as well. So your educator, is it for Wedding
Wedding
Wire,
Pro.
Wedding Pro.
Yeah. So that's the Knot and Wedding Wire's like
Right.
vendor facing
Yeah.
educational arm.
So how are you taking all of like what you've learned and applied it where you can share and educate other event professionals, whether it's early on or in between if they're struggling? What are your thoughts, whether it's on that platform or any platform that you speak, as I know you speak as well, in reference to the mental piece to it and the emotions, all that stuff for those who still want to continue being in the event industry?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a very self-aware person. I do a lot. I'm very introspective and and also very analytical. And so I understand a lot about running a business, the behind the scenes. I understand a lot about the emotional side of being a business owner and working in the wedding industry. I know about the meat and potatoes, like systems, processes, legal stuff. Like I just feel like I have a lot to share. And to the extent that I like helping people, I mean, that's why I was a wedding planner to begin with. Like I like helping people. And so to the extent that lessons that I learned or experiences that I've had can help others, I definitely want to continue doing that and getting those messages out there and helping people. Like I've helped people in informal capacities and formal capacities and speaking in educational capacities. And so just however I can help others and share my experience and life lessons, I want to continue doing that. It's important. And as long as people feel like what I have to say is valuable, then I'll keep trying to speak on it.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing some nuggets here because I love it. And with that said, a little fun fact, what do you do when you take time off? Do you take time off? And especially, in transitions from when you were a wedding planner, the transitional piece, and then now, like, what does your time off look like in self-care?
Yeah. I mean, I have my weekends back now, and it is like the
What is
best thing ever. It excites me so much. It makes my husband so happy because it's so foreign. For 9 years, I did not have weekends and on it and like worked. I mean, I worked around the clock. I'm going to admit it, basically working like 7 days a week. So now having weekends off is absolutely fantastic. And I'm trying to be very good. I haven't had we're not so busy with the new firm that I've been having to really work on weekends. I am way more careful about setting essentially training your clients, because when I had wedding planning clients, I would respond on weekends and stuff. And now it's like, I am not going to send a law email on the weekend. I will draft it over the weekend, but I will not send it till Monday morning. Cause I just don't want to train my clients that I'm obviously emergencies aside, but I just don't want people to expect that I'm available on the weekends. But I have a really funny, I think it's funny hobby that I've picked up. So it's a craft. It's called blinging. It's what we knew back in the day as like bedazzling, essentially.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I found this maker crafter on Instagram. Her handle is This Is Tisa, and she does teaches blinging. So it's kind of putting rhinestones on different things. So it's my new hobby.
It brings you joy from what I see.
It brings me joy. So people that are listening aren't going to get this, but I blinged this entire cup with my name on it, and it brings me so much pride and joy. The thing is, I feel like I'm a creative person. My creativity doesn't necessarily manifest in traditional ways. I'm not a good painter. I don't draw, I can't draw freehand, but I can write. I like designing things and I like color. And so I've always felt oh, I wish I could craft. I wish I could just make something, but I've never been that's not my skill set. But with this, it's very organized. There's a pattern. It's attention to detail. But at the end of the day, I still have this physical thing that I've made, and it just brings me so much joy. So
that is awesome. I love it. And I'm sure it brings you this mental joy.
Yeah.
Because when I am doing something crafty, it's my therapy. I call it a therapy because it gives your brain a downtime. So that's one thing that I would always recommend. Find something, even if it's something close to what you do in your business, but find something that really put your mind to it and kind of focus on that.
Yeah.
right? And that in itself, for me, I know personally, the therapy piece is like so on it, and that'll make my day, and it'll give me a time to kind of regroup.
Yes. Yeah.
So when I
Yeah.
saw that cup, I was like, ooh, I want to know about that. So thank you for sharing that. For sure.
Yes.
With regards to going back to the emotion, I know that you wrote a book and it's called The Wedding Rollercoaster. So why the name, and tell us, who is this specific for?
Yeah, it speaks directly to people who are planning a wedding, but it is also very helpful for their family, their wedding party, anybody sort of in the close circle around the people getting married, but it's also helpful for vendors. So while it doesn't speak to all of those people, it talks directly to the people getting married. There is so much information in there for all of these other people to really understand and grasp all the elements of the wedding planning process and why it's so emotional. And as for the name, it originally was called The Psychology of Weddings, but
I thought you were going to say the psychotic side.
Oh, no. I mean, that could be, it's like, that's my pet name for it. But yeah, it was originally called The Psychology of Weddings. And I was working with a book coach and book editor, and she just didn't feel like that worked. Mm-hmm. And so the Wedding Roller Coaster was something that I kind of came up with, and then it worked perfectly in terms of artwork for the front. But yeah, weddings are lots of ups and downs.
Okay. Have you received any responses from couples who have purchased it?
From the people that I've heard of, have found it incredibly helpful, because I felt like there was a hole in the wedding books that are out there. There's a ton of how-to books, like how to plan the wedding, when to send your invitations, how to pick your color palette, like cool ways to ask your bridesmaid to be a bridesmaid, that kind of stuff. But there was nobody really talking about the emotional side of it. And when we look back at our jobs and all of the stuff we've seen, there's weird stuff happens. And I wanted to actually understand why. So it's partly kind of like, it's almost a little bit academic as well, because I read psychology books and did research before writing it. I talked to a lot of experts and included their commentary in it. So it is actually a lot of helpful facts on the psychology behind weddings.
So with what you just shared, it sounds like the book is really for that mental awareness for couples to think about. Do you think that there's enough mental awareness in our industry?
No. Yeah. People don't talk about it. And I think it's hard. And yes, actually, this brings up a really good point. I think you'll be happy that we've gotten to this point in the conversation. So since basically for about a little over a year, I have been dealing with the fact that my dad is terminally ill, and things started getting worse last April of 2022. And I couldn't tell any of my clients what was going on because I felt like they wouldn't understand. And some of them would have. I think some of them would have been fine and been gracious about it. But it's those one-off experiences that we have over our career that really makes us doubt the quality of human beings and understanding and compassion and sympathy. And I just knew, because it's happened. I've been on the receiving end of just people being so unreasonable and so not nice about things. And so I was like, I don't feel like I can talk about this publicly. And so I finished out all of my 2022 weddings. I had to give some of them away because I just didn't have the capacity to keep doing all of this work, and finished out my 2022 weddings and didn't talk about it. And then once I launched the new business, I finally felt like I was able to be honest. And I have a whole Instagram and Facebook post where I talk about what's going on with my dad and all of that stuff. But I felt like there was not room in the wedding industry for that level of honesty and that level of humanity. And it's really sad. It is. It's sad. It makes me angry. I've talked to my therapist about the fact that I'm a little bit resentful of the fact that we just couldn't share that. And I know other people who, I mean, so many people, when I posted that about my dad, wrote similar messages about similar things that they're going through that they've never talked about publicly, and they're still in the wedding industry. And I've seen a lot of commentary from people who have personal stuff going on in their lives, who I've known about stuff because I'm friendly with them and it's vendor to vendor, but like they would never publicly talk about this stuff. And it just makes me really sad.
And I'm so happy you share that. Thank you. Because I get chills right now because I can definitely relate. I mean, I've been in the business close to 25 years, and it's in whatever career you choose, you're going to go through something personal. And I agree with you in that in this particular industry, it's really hard because I know I've done it. I will share maybe with one or two, if that, clients, things that I'm going through, whether even if I'm sick, it's like I went through something with my dad before he passed. It was just this whole year ordeal that it was like, okay, I'm a business owner. I have to run my business, but and he was in Florida. So I was traveling and then really consumed by everything that was going on with his illness, and knowing that it would be either one day or another that something would happen, it took a toll on me. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time that I felt like my journey became a little bit more difficult than the past. I figure, I've been through challenges before. It's like, why is this hard? And it really made me take a step back and really say, you know what? I need to deal with myself and my emotions because this is just a little bit too much, but I get it. They're going to say, then you're going to mess up my event.
Yes. Yeah. And on the flip side of that, my concern was that exact concern. And then on the back end was I waited a few months post finishing my weddings before we launched our law firm because I didn't want any of my clients to think she phoned in our wedding. Yeah. She had this whole new business idea. I mean, and to be honest, like the truth is, obviously I knew the law firm was happening, but we pulled all the official stuff together in like a month. Starting a business the second time is so much easier. And so it wasn't like I was leading these two lives and like had all the law firm website stuff going while I was still doing weddings. Like there was a clean break, but I just didn't want any of my clients to feel a certain way.
It's like them second guessing your professionalism. Your mind is struggling.
Yeah.
And it's going through this emotional state.
Yeah. And I was afraid that they were going to start doing what we talked about earlier with this like post-wedding scrutiny, like going and nitpicking the day and trying to look at things that I did wrong. Yeah. And the irony is the very last wedding I had, it was a very lovely couple. It was like the perfect wedding for me to end that part of my career on. And they did find out about my dad after the fact and actually sent me flowers, which made me cry because I was like, I mean, they were wonderful. And I knew had I let them in earlier, they would be ones that would have understood and been fine. Right. But I felt like that was very sweet.
And you know that you have a great client, but you're still like, no, let me not share that.
Yep.
Let me not share that because I want to make sure they know that I'm on it, you know, and that's always something that you're struggling with. So as a business owner, you know, you're going through all of these emotions and it's not really heard much. That's pretty much what led me to finally saying yes to this platform. It's something that we really need to talk about more. And I'm going to have another special guest pretty soon, Sharissa from Event Therapy magazine. When I first saw that magazine, I was like, that's the one that I want to submit my article because it's event related and we go through so many emotions. And I love her platform because she's like talking about more of that mental state that we don't talk about a lot in the event industry. And I feel that that could just bring so much. I know it's going to be very difficult because it's difficult for people to open up and really, you know, bring in some mental wellness because we're in this industry of fast pace. Of let's get this done. We don't have time to think. We don't have time for us. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm currently in my journey with my mom as a caregiver as she goes through dementia. So, you know, I've been in this business. I love it. One of the things that I changed was having more control of, you know what, I've been in this industry for a long time and I don't want to leave it, but my change was I do less events.
Yep.
So, you know, that's now giving me the opportunity to work on different projects, to care for my mother and do what I need to and just move ahead. Let's switch and let's talk a little bit about, what do you consider is a superpower that you have?
I mean, my existing superpower is like being an empath and a highly sensitive person, being just so in tune with people's emotions and being able to help them. I'm often one of those people that find that people like spill their guts to me, and maybe we don't even know each other that well, but they're just like, oh, I feel comfortable opening up to you. So I like that. I'm here to help people. I'm a good listener. So consider that my superpower.
It all really comes back together to, I love the name that you gave your business that you had, which was the Color Pop. And whenever I see you, I think of colors. I mean, branding was on point.
It wasn't at what's funny is it was kind of an accident. So I actually wanted to name my business something different. Actually, it was like related to a song lyric. And there was a business that was too close. When I was starting my business, there was an existing event planner whose business name was a little too close. And I remember I talked to my friend who was an intellectual property attorney. And I was like, do you think it's too close? Am I going to have a problem? And she was like, if you're even asking the question, then the answer is yes. Don't even worry about it. So I spent a while trying to come up with the name, and music is really important to me. So like I was looking through like my iTunes catalog at the time for like album titles and song names and band names, and struck out there. And then I had the thought like, oh, pop of color, but that felt a little too wordy. And so I went with Color Pop. I mean, I've always been colorful. Color, I think like if somebody could look at my brain when I see color, like they'd probably see it get very, very highly activated. So I've always been like enjoyed color, been into color and all that stuff. So it fit, but I don't think I realized quite how perfect it was.
Yeah, no, I loved it. And, you know, and very memorable. I know we met like quite a few years ago. We were both on a panel speaking to future event professionals or planners, and just that memory, you know, it's like I remembered your business name and I just remembered the joy that you had when you were sharing the information, and it was just really wonderful. And, you know, we connected along the way, and that's always resonated. So, you know, just a little tip, we're not talking about branding, but that's something really important because it has to make sense with who you are.
Yeah.
And I think it resonates very, very well. So on that note, what advice would you give someone who's looking to get into event planning?
I feel like that's a whole that could be a whole conversation.
That's hard, right? One.
Yes. But my one thing actually, and this surprised me to sort of learn and discover myself, was to build a community, not only with other business owners, but that is definitely like, you need to be friends with small business owners. They know what you're going through. They are going to be there for you. They like will sit beside you, but befriending people who are in your same vendor category. So like if you want to be in event planning, develop relationships with other event planners. And it sounds counterintuitive, and it feels like, especially for me, I'm a super competitive person and never thought that like I would actually ever be able to be friends with other wedding planners because I would feel too competitive. But they're some of the closest relationships that I have. It's been helpful. We've, you know, been able to be there just as friends. We've been able to be there professionally to give advice, to brainstorm, bounce ideas off of. We've stepped in for each other when people needed help. Like one of the planners she was one of the first planners that I ever met at the very beginning, and we've stayed very good friends since then. But like I had to step in and cover a wedding for her once when her son was sick. I also took over one of her COVID weddings because she decided to shut down her planning company at that time. And she was just like, she's like, I can't do this with these people for another year. They were lovely, but she just like knew she was done with planning. I was like, I can't do it. And she's like, you're one of the few people that I trust to be able to step in and take over. So I was able to do that for her. But yeah, that piece surprised me. So making friends and like making sure that like your community and your circle includes people that do exactly what you do.
I totally agree. That is the best advice that I love, because that's all about what I've been building all throughout. It's what's kept my sanity, and I think it's what's kept me longer in the business. I'm actually tomorrow helping a colleague with an event, with a gala, and yeah, it's bringing on those people that they know exactly what you're feeling. Also, they know exactly, so you're able to release a little bit more with them because they have that full understanding, versus a family member or a friend who really doesn't know, okay, what do you mean you can't work during the weekends? What do you mean you're working long hours? So you have a more sound and relatable conversation because of that. It works. And I know that I have so many great colleagues that are planners.
Yeah.
And I have colleagues in different vendor category, but planning has really, really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
To have those connections, to have someone that if you can't, like when my father passed away, I had a conference that I was working on that I was putting together, and my colleagues just came together, and I didn't have to worry about anything. They were like, just breathe, and that really helped me a lot. So totally, that is an amazing advice. So from this conversation that we've been having, what is something, let's say 2 or 3 things that you feel listeners should take away from the conversations that we had today?
The big one is being more open and talking with others about your own mental health. And it doesn't have to be public. I mean, honestly, the only like super personal thing I've ever shared was the stuff about my dad. Like, I don't share about mental health struggles publicly too much, but personally, like one-on-one, I will talk to people about it all day. So like, please make sure that you're talking about this with friends, family, colleagues, but mental health professionals. Therapy is great. I think being honest about that more. And then the other thing too is it's like the comparison trap / keeping in mind that what people are showing you on social media is the highlight reel. And I know that's been a message that a lot of people are saying, but I don't we hear it, but I'm not sure we all really are taking it in. But it's the highlight reel. We have no idea. And this gets to like the comparison and competition thing too. Like, someone can look super busy. They can look like they're booking more events on social media. Maybe they're doing some of them for free. Maybe they're doing it as an associate under somebody else. Like, maybe it's just a friend. People who look super successful, who knows, maybe they have a partner that's the primary breadwinner. And so they don't have to, bring in a certain amount of income. Like, we just never know what's going on.
Everybody's situation is different, for sure.
So do not judge your situation against somebody else, what somebody else is putting out publicly, because you just never know the full story.
Awesome. And a third, would you share?
I think the industry we could just be better about taking care of each other. Like you mentioned, sometimes vendors aren't always on the same team, and we are on the same team. Like, we are all trying to just come together to like make this one day happen for people. And so be nice to each other and check the egos at the door. This is a hard industry to be in. If this conversation has shown anything, like, this is a tough industry and we need each other. So let's be better about taking care of each other than we currently are.
That is awesome. I totally love that. Is there something that I didn't ask you that you would like to share?
I think we covered everything.
So share a little bit about Oduberg, and who are you servicing? Who is your client? And I'll definitely be sharing your links and all your information for that. And then tell us a little bit about Legal Set.
Yeah. So Oduberg is our law firm. We are licensed to practice in New York, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. And we serve small business owners and creative entrepreneurs. So the idea is we are kind of generalists for these small businesses and entrepreneurs. So any of the type of stuff that they might need, whether it is drafting or negotiating contracts, advising on client disputes, advising on hiring employees or independent contractors, intellectual property, real estate in terms of leases of office space or brick and mortar space, studio space, that kind of thing, just sort of anything that a small business needs. And our goal is we want to make working with attorneys less scary, because I know it's very intimidating. A lot of times when people have to get attorneys involved, it tends to be not necessarily a positive situation. So we're trying to make working with attorneys a little bit more friendly, less scary, a little more accessible, and encouraging people to start relationships with an attorney before they actually need one. So it's important that you like your attorney. We're kind of like another team member. We're like your accountant. We're kind of like your virtual assistant. Like we want to make sure that we get along. So people should be shopping around for an attorney, ask for referrals, but build that relationship before you actually need somebody. That way, when something happens, you're going to know that you have somebody that has your back and who you can turn to, and you're not panicking. It's going to make that situation a lot better. And then because we're only able to practice in those 4 states for the time being, we have a contract template shop called Legally Set, and those are all attorney drafted contracts. There's a lot of contracts in there specifically for people in the events industry, so like photographer, caterer, florist, planner, officiant, all that good stuff, along with just general business contracts. So if somebody hasn't updated their contract in a while, if they've never had an attorney review the contract, that would be a really great place to start to get a template. And then the idea is you just take it to a local attorney in your jurisdiction for any state specific compliance stuff. So it's been drafted by myself and Kuhnby, who are small business owners who have worked in the events industry. So it's more specific to our experiences, but we can't obviously make it compliant with every state. So the idea is you don't have to find an attorney necessarily who knows the ins and outs of being a wedding planner in your state, but just somebody who can make sure that it's compliant with your state law.
Awesome. So I have a dumb question.
No dumb questions.
So with regards to contracts, is it a myth that you don't have to be as detailed?
It needs to be thorough. So I am a fan of longer contracts because you do need to make sure that it is going to protect you, but there is a way to make certain things more general so that you're not having to like add in every specific little thing. So it's kind of like a yes and no. So it doesn't have to cover all of the specifics of what can happen. Like for example, so we've made a change to our contracts that we're no longer specifically referencing COVID-19, but now instead we have like a safe working environment provision. And we also use the very sexy term communicable diseases, which makes me laugh because I never would have thought that needed to be in a contract. But now that we're dealing with like COVID and we had monkeypox and we had the flu and the norovirus, like all of this stuff, like who knows what is happening. So it's better to prepare generally for things than to have to actually specifically name stuff. But it can be as specific as you want. I just want folks' stuff to be thorough, to make sure that it's covering a lot of things. And Kuhnby likes to say your contract should be concrete and not cute, because we get a lot of people saying, oh, I don't want it to sound too formal. It's going to scare people. But my question is always, I mean, I was an attorney for 9 years. My contract was scary. Like it was drafted by me. If it is like very one-sided towards the wedding, like very wedding planner friendly, like it was scary. And I never once lost a client because they said, I don't like your contract. I'm not going to work with you. Like people expect to enter into contracts. So this idea that we don't want to scare people or we don't want it to be too long, like, yes, we want to make sure that they understand it. That is very important. But like, I just don't think you're going to scare somebody away with your contract.
Well, after you sharing that new word, I'm going to be contacting you because I think I need you to review my contract. So. I need to add that word and a few other things. So I'll definitely be. So anyone listening, it's important. There's so many nuggets that are a part of this, and I'll spell it out in the show notes because it's very important, from emotions to understanding each other and knowing, from being empathetic and knowing that we're in a industry that's really hectic, and really trusting your gut feeling, because we are in this amazing industry that, we fall in love with, but it's really stressful. And so we have to know what our limits are. It's good to be proactive and say, no, this is where I'm going to stay at. But you have to understand, is it doing good for you, for your mental state, for your physical well-being, for your personal well-being? So take all of that into consideration, and also make sure that your contract is solid.
Yes.
So you don't have to worry about it. Again, goes back to that mental state and well-being. So thank you so much,
Of
Leah, for
course.
sharing all of that. Can you share where people can reach you at? And I'll share that also in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. So I am at the Leah Weinberg on Instagram, and then websites are oduberg.com and legallyset.com. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, feel free to send me a DM, email me. I am happy to chat more.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was so great to reconnect and chat and, chat not just on basic things, but really, really true and important things. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, what an awesome chat with Leah. I know I took away some nuggets and it really came full circle with a lot of things that we both connect with, whether it's on the emotional side, on mental wellness, on self care, on knowing and trusting your gut and having that flow from mind to body and a full understanding of who you are so that you can make right decisions, the best decisions that are for you, whether it's in business and personal. Because at the end of the day, you have to think about what's important to you and what's going to make you feel good about what you do. And you want to truly put 100% in everything that you do. So I'm really appreciative of Leah not only just sharing why she made her decisions and what made her feel good about what she's looking forward to doing in the next part of her journey. Thank you, Leah, for really being transparent and sharing the emotions and the mental struggles that we go through as not just a wedding planner, but also as an entrepreneur. And thank you for sharing that truly transparent story about your dad. I know it must have been a challenge for you to have to, just keep it to yourself. And I know that in the world that we live in, there's so many challenges and so many struggles. And sometimes with social media and putting everything out there, it becomes even more challenging as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. Thank you again. And I look forward to chatting again soon because I know we have a pending conversation. I look forward to bringing you back to this platform and continuing a conversation on a different level. So everyone, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you tune in for our next episode on Inspired by Jacqueline.